There is a monster in a labyrinth. You built the labyrinth. You feed the monster, and you have no idea you did any of this. The Greeks told this story 3,000 years ago. Victorians retold it as Jekyll and Hyde. You've seen it on television as Walter White became Heisenberg. Same monster, same labyrinth. And it's not fiction. The ancient Greeks told this story 3,000 years ago. King Minos of Crete was given a snow-white bull by the god Poseidon. He was supposed to sacrifice it. He didn't. Poseidon's revenge was not fire, not death. He made Minos' wife fall in love with the bull. The result was the Minotaur, half man, half beast. Minos was so ashamed he built a labyrinth to hide it. This is not Greek mythology. This is a map of your mind. Carl Jung spent 48 years proving that every archetype has a myth attached, and the myth is the user manual for your psyche. Last episode, we covered all 7 archetypes. The shadow, the persona, the hero, the trickster, the wounded healer, the anima, the self. 7 archetypes, 7 myths, 7 maps. But one of them runs your life more than all the others combined. The shadow. Not because it's the strongest, because it's the one you refuse to look at. And the one you refuse to look at is the one driving the car. Today, we don't just explain the shadow. We give you the map the Greeks drew 3,000 years ago, and the thread to find your way back out. By the end, you'll have 3 specific practices. A way to walk into your own labyrinth, a way to see the myth you're already living, and a way to have the conversation your shadow has been waiting for. This is the Shadow and the Minotaur, 14 philosophers. Season 1 took us from a Roman slave who said, "Control what you can," to the Buddha who sat under a tree and refused to move until he understood why we suffer. Season 2 is different. We're not covering philosophers. We're going inside the map. Every archetype has a myth. Every myth is a user manual. And we start with the one archetype you've been hiding from your entire life. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is the episode where you stop calling it fate. You've seen the other shadow work videos, the Jung quotes, the stock footage of dark forests, the advice to watch your emotional reactions. They all tell you the shadow exists. None of them give you a map. This isn't one of those videos. This is the myth the Greeks drew 3,000 years before Jung was born. And it's more practical than any self-help book you've ever read. This is Mindscape Philosophy. Season 2, Jungian Mythology. Today, the shadow and the Minotaur, the monster you built, the labyrinth you're living in, and the thread that gets you out. Let me tell you the story. Not the version you learned in school, the version Jung would have told. King Minos of Crete wanted to prove the gods favored him. He asked Poseidon for a sign. A snow-white bull rose from the sea. The sign was given. The deal was simple. Sacrifice the bull back to Poseidon. But Minos looked at the bull and thought, "This is too beautiful to kill." He kept it. He sacrificed a different bull instead, as if the god of the sea wouldn't notice. Poseidon noticed, and his revenge was surgical. He didn't strike Minos. He struck his wife, Pasiphaë. He made her fall in love with the bull. The result was a child, half human, half bull, the Minotaur. Now here is where it becomes a map of your mind. Minos was ashamed, not of what he did, but of what the Minotaur represented, his greed, his arrogance, his betrayal of a god. The Minotaur was not the crime. The Minotaur was the evidence. So Minos did what we all do with the parts of ourselves we can't face. He built a labyrinth, a massive, impossible maze, designed by Daedalus, the greatest architect alive. He put the Minotaur at the center, and he closed the door. I know this sounds like a history lesson. It's not. Every detail of this myth is about you. The labyrinth, the monster, the thread. I'm going to show you exactly how to use each one. Stay with me. This is the first thing you need to understand about your shadow. You didn't find the labyrinth, you built it. Every time you suppressed something true about yourself, you added a corridor. Every time you pretended to be fine, you laid another stone. But the Minotaur didn't stay quiet. A monster locked in darkness doesn't disappear. It grows, it hungers, and Minos couldn't kill it, because killing the Minotaur would mean killing the evidence. So he fed it. Every 9 years, 7 young men and 7 young women from Athens were thrown into the labyrinth. They weren't criminals, they were tribute. Minos fed other people to the monster he created. This is projection, and you do it every day. The person who enrages you for no reason, they're not the problem. They walked past your labyrinth and your Minotaur recognized itself in them. Jung said, Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This went on for decades, until one man volunteered to go in. His name was Theseus. Theseus was not the strongest. He was not a god. He was the one who chose to face what everyone else was running from. The hero archetype is not about being brave, it's about going into the labyrinth of your own psyche. But here's the part everyone forgets. Theseus didn't go in alone. Ariadne, King Minos' own daughter, gave him two things, a sword and a ball of thread. The sword was for the Minotaur. The thread was for the way back. Theseus tied one end to the entrance. He walked into the darkness, unwinding the thread as he went. Deeper, darker. The thread was the only thing connecting him to the world above. At the center, the Minotaur. Theseus didn't negotiate. He didn't project. He didn't feed it someone else. He met it, he fought it, and he won. And then he did something harder than killing a monster. He followed the thread back out. Now let me tell you what this actually means, because Jung would have recognized this story instantly, and he would have said, this is not a myth. It's a psychological diagram. The labyrinth is your unconscious. Every corridor is something you suppressed. Every dead end is a fear you won't face. The Minotaur at the center is your shadow. Everything about yourself you've hidden. Not because it's evil, because you're ashamed of it. Jung said, the shadow is 90% pure gold. Your creativity, your wildness, your power, your hunger. Everything you suppressed because someone told you it wasn't acceptable. That's where your unlived life lives. Theseus is the hero. The part of you that chooses to go in. Not forced, not dragged, volunteered. That's the difference between shadow work and breakdown. One you choose, the other chooses you. The thread is consciousness. Ariadne gave it to Theseus. She is the anima, the inner guide, the part of you that already knows the way out. She doesn't enter the labyrinth. She holds the thread from outside. She keeps you connected to the light. And the sword? The sword is honesty. You don't fight the Minotaur with affirmations. You don't fight it with positive thinking. You fight it by looking at it directly and saying, I know what you are. I know where you came from. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. This is what no other shadow work video will tell you. The problem is not the Minotaur. The problem is the labyrinth. You can fight the monster, but if you don't dismantle the walls, you'll just build another one, and another Minotaur will grow. But before we go deeper, a question. In the myth, Theseus was given two things to face the Minotaur, a sword and a ball of thread. What does the thread represent in Jungian psychology? A. The ego's defenses. B. Consciousness. The thin line that lets you go in and come back. C. Repression. The walls you built. D. The collective unconscious. Answer later. Stay with me. The Greeks drew this map 3,000 years ago. But here's the thing about maps. Different cultures draw the same territory from different angles, and the shadow has been mapped more than once. In 1886, Robert Louis Stevenson wrote a story that Jung would have recognized instantly. Dr. Jekyll, respected, controlled, civilized. Mr. Hyde, violent, impulsive, free, same man. Jekyll didn't integrate his shadow. He tried to separate it. Jekyll thought he could isolate his dark side, let it out occasionally, then lock it away. But Hyde didn't stay in the box. He got stronger. He started appearing without the formula. The shadow, once unleashed and unintegrated, does not go back quietly. Stevenson wrote The Minotaur. He just called it Hyde. I read this story as a teenager and didn't get it. I thought it was a horror novel. Now I realize Stevenson was doing shadow work on the page, and he didn't even know that's what it was called. Walter White didn't become Heisenberg in one episode. He became Heisenberg over 5 seasons. The slow, agonizing, believable transformation of a decent man whose shadow was fed by pride, by fear, by the refusal to accept help. He didn't integrate his shadow. He became it. These are not just stories. They are warnings. The same pattern, repeated across 3,000 years. The monster in the labyrinth. The gentleman in the laboratory. The teacher in the RV. Different names. Same truth. If you don't meet your Minotaur, it meets you. Quiz answer. The thread represents B, consciousness. It's the thin line that lets you go into the darkness of your own psyche and find your way back. Without it, without awareness of what you're doing, you get lost in the labyrinth. the shadow takes over. Here is how the shadow actually operates in your life. Not in myth, not in Victorian novels, in you, today. The shadow is formed in childhood. You are born whole. Then the world tells you, that's not acceptable. Don't be angry. Don't be loud. Don't be selfish. Don't be too much. And piece by piece, you cut off parts of yourself and throw them into the dark. By the time you're an adult, the labyrinth is fully built. You don't even remember what's in there. You just know there are rooms you don't go into, subjects you don't bring up, feelings you don't allow. And the Minotaur paces in the dark, waiting, and then projection begins. The Minotaur gets hungry. You can't face it, so you see it in other people. That colleague who seems arrogant? They're not arrogant. You suppressed your own confidence, and now you resent anyone who displays it. That partner who's too emotional? You locked your own emotions in the labyrinth decades ago. Now anyone who expresses feeling threatens to remind you what you buried. Jung said, the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. And at 3 a.m., when the distractions are gone and the labyrinth is quiet, the Minotaur makes itself known. Not as a monster, as anxiety, as self-loathing, as the voice that tells you you're not enough. That voice is your Minotaur, and it's been alone in the dark for a very long time. I know this voice. You probably do too. It's not telling you the truth. It's telling you it's been locked in a basement for 20 years and nobody's visited. One more question. This one stays with you until the end. King Minos fed young Athenians to the Minotaur rather than face it himself. In Jungian terms, this is called projection. What is the correct way to stop feeding the Minotaur? A. Avoid people who trigger you. B. Recognize the shadow in yourself first. C. Express your anger freely so it doesn't build up. D. Meditate until the shadow disappears. Answer at the end of the video. So what do you actually do? You've heard the myth. You've seen the pattern. Here is the map. 3 practices, not theory, not watch your emotional reactions. Actual steps. And let me be clear, this is not self-help. Self-help tells you to fix yourself. Shadow work tells you to meet yourself. There's a difference. Practice 1. The labyrinth walk. Tonight, sit in a quiet room. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself standing at the entrance of your labyrinth. What does it look like? Stone? Forest? Office corridors? It's yours. You built it. Now walk in. I felt ridiculous the first time I tried this. Do it anyway. Something happens when you stop thinking about the shadow and start walking toward it. As you walk, notice what you find. A locked door? A voice from behind a wall? A figure in the distance? Don't force anything. Just observe. The Minotaur might appear. If it does, don't fight. Ask it one question. What do you want me to know? When you're ready, follow the thread back. Open your eyes. Write down what you saw. Do this once a week. The labyrinth didn't appear overnight. You won't map it in one walk, but each time, you go deeper. Each time, the Minotaur becomes less frightening. Practice 2. The Myth Journal. For one day, write your life as if it were a Greek myth. Who played King Minos, the part of you that builds walls and feeds the monster? Who was Ariadne, the guide who gave you the thread? Who was Theseus, the part that chose to go in? You'll be shocked by what you find. The traffic jam becomes Poseidon's revenge. The argument with your partner becomes the Minotaur hungry for attention. This isn't make-believe, it's pattern recognition. You're learning to see the myth you're already living. Practice 3. The shadow dialogue. Take 2 chairs. Sit in one. Speak as yourself, the person you show the world. Then move to the other chair. Speak as your shadow. Let it say everything you've been hiding. The anger, the desire, the truth. This sounds strange. Do it anyway. Jung developed this technique. He called it active imagination. Sit in one chair. Speak as yourself. Then move. Let the shadow speak back. You'll hear things you didn't know you knew. The shadow has been waiting to talk for decades. Pause. You can find lists of Jung quotes anywhere. You can find the shadow explained in any psychology textbook. What comes next is why this video exists. The Minotaur is not just your shadow. It's the bridge to becoming who you were meant to be, and most people never cross it. The modern world has made this harder. Your persona has never been busier. Your shadow has never been hungrier. Social media is persona amplification. Every post is another stone in the labyrinth wall. Every curated version of yourself is another corridor the Minotaur has to pace in darkness. You're not connecting, you're constructing. And the higher the wall, the more you project. Cancel culture, from a Jungian perspective, is collective shadow projection. We see our own capacity for cruelty in someone else and destroy them for it. The Athenians are still being fed to the Minotaur. We just live stream it now. The nice guy who can't understand why people don't appreciate him. His Minotaur is rage. Decades of suppressed anger at being overlooked. He doesn't see it. He calls it being a good person. His Minotaur paces. His labyrinth grows. The workaholic who can't stop. Her Minotaur is worthlessness. She built the labyrinth to prove she's enough, and the Minotaur gets fed every time she hits a target. But the Minotaur doesn't want targets. It wants to be seen. It wants her to admit she's terrified of being ordinary. Here's why all of this matters. These are not just interesting stories. These are maps of the same path. The path from who you pretend to be to who you actually are. Jung said the first half of life is building an ego. The second half is letting go of it. Most people never reach the second half. They die protecting a self they built in their 20s. The Minotaur is the bridge. You cannot reach the self without meeting the shadow. Theseus didn't become king because he killed the Minotaur. He became whole because he walked in, faced what was hidden, and walked back out. The thread in his hand was the same thread that brought him home. Consciousness, awareness, the refusal to look away. You are living in a labyrinth you built before you knew what you were doing. The Minotaur is not your enemy. It's the part of you that's been waiting, in the dark, alone, for you to come back and say, I'm ready to see you now. Quiz answer. How do you stop feeding the Minotaur? B. Recognize the shadow in yourself first. Minos never did this. He fed the labyrinth with other people until a hero came to do what he couldn't. You don't need a Theseus. The thread is already in your hand. You've met the shadow. You've walked the labyrinth. But there's another archetype. The one you wear every day without knowing it. The mask you show the world. The persona. Narcissus at the pool. He didn't know he was looking at himself. And the mask you've been wearing is the reason your shadow got so hungry in the first place. That's next time on Mindscape Philosophy. This is Mindscape Philosophy. Tonight, one labyrinth walk. One moment of meeting what you've been hiding from. The thread is already in your hand. You just have to start walking. See you next time.